Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay, may I begin now, ma'am?
Yes, Anjali, I think you should begin.
Okay, ma'am. Principal ma'am will be joining later.
Yeah, she's just joining, but she said that you may start.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So, good evening, respected Vice Principal ma'am. Principal ma'am is not here right now, but with her permission, may I begin? Principals and teachers from the sister schools and my fellow teacher learners, I welcome all of you to the session today for mathematical literacy in context of PISA. A famous quote by Pythagoras says, "Numbers rule the universe." It is definitely true because knowing and understanding the language of mathematics is important because maths is all pervasive. Maths is there in the grocery store. Maths is there in the kitchen. From playing games to playing music, maths is vital everywhere. Math helps us to save money. It helps us in managing time. From finding the temperature of the body using the thermometer to finding pressure using the barometer, math is an inseparable part of our lives. From an architect to an engineer, a biologist to a baker, all the navigation systems, everyone is making use of math. Therefore, we can very well say that mathematics is the tool we use to understand the world we live in. So what exactly is mathematical literacy? Mathematical literacy is the ability of students to analyze, reason, and communicate ideas effectively as they pose, formulate, solve, and interpret solutions to mathematical problems in a variety of situations. By developing mathematical literacy, students are able to understand the language of mathematics, which is all so very important in the world we live in. So let's come to the objectives of teaching mathematics. The objective of the school mathematics curriculum at the elementary and the secondary level is that it empowers students to investigate, to make sense of, and to construct mathematical meanings from new situations. By learning mathematics, students must be able to develop logical thinking, reasoning, and they should be able to find that maths is there in all walks of life. They should not find the subject in isolation with other subjects or life. Rather, they should be able to make use of their learning in their daily, day-to-day life. Let us take up the present status of mathematics learning. Various educational surveys and achievement data over the years have shown that learning achievements of children in various subjects, especially mathematics, are not up to the expected levels, despite all the efforts made by the states in this direction. A well-known NGO, Pratham's annual status of the education report has flagged out poor learning outcomes in schools. According to an ACER survey conducted in the rural areas, only 58% of the students in classes 3 to 5 could read a class 1 textbook. Less than half of them were able to find simple two-digit subtraction. And about two-thirds of the students in the class 4 could not even master the measurement of length of a pencil with a ruler. So it can also be noted right here that the new education policy also links severe learning gaps and crisis with the young children. So we all have to work to improve the 4 important competencies of the students, which are cognitive development, language development, numeracy development, and social and emotional development. So in maths, students are broadly assessed on the basis of 3 skills. Skill 1 being remembering. This means recognizing or recalling the knowledge from memory. It is also like memorizing tables, formulae to be used later. Skill 2 is understanding. That is constructing meaning from the different types of functions, whether they are written or graphic messages. Understanding a data given in the form of either a pie chart or a bar graph should be called understanding the given data. Skill 3 is applying or application. That means carrying out or using a procedure through executing or implementing. For example, if a dozen bananas cost 60 rupees, what would be the cost of 40 bananas? That is called application, applying the knowledge in our day-to-day lives. So PISA, the Program for International Students Assessment, which has started in the year 2000, and it is conducted every 3 years. The modalities have been discussed in detail in the previous workshops, but we are now taking up this thing. Why PISA for India? PISA will help students and the teachers to help the competency-based examination reforms in the school system. Secondly, it will discourage the rote learning, which is quite prevalent in our society. And thirdly, it will lead to recognition and acceptability of Indian students and prepare them for the global economy of the 21st century. The areas of focus in PISA are content area, first of all being the quantity, which always deals with how much, how many, and so on. Space and shape, like a cylindrical building having a hemispherical dome on top of it, or an ice cream cone. Change and relationships. It deals with what are the percentages, how much is the change in the data on a day-to-day basis related to COVID-19. Uncertainty is dealing with the probability of any situation. For example, will it rain today? In terms of context, it is personal, like budgeting, saving. Occupational, as in the case of doctors and nurses, they are using the exact dosage of medicine and finding the exact time for any surgical procedure. Societal, how is the COVID-19 situation affecting the society economically and otherwise? Scientific, from AI to CS, from physics to chemistry, everything revolves around mathematics. Then we have the processes which deal with formulating situations, employing them mathematically, and interpreting to apply and evaluate the mathematical outcomes. Let us consider an example. Suppose I say that the probability of the COVID-19 vaccine being evolved till 2021 is 3/4. Then what is the probability that the COVID-19 vaccine will not be evolved? Can you tell me? The probability of it being evolved and recommended is 3/4. So what is the probability that it will not be evolved?
1/4.
1/4, definitely. That's right. So in this simple example, we have taken the content as uncertainty. And in the context, we are dealing with the societal things. And while we are processing, we are dealing with employing the knowledge of finding the probability once we know the formula. Now, my colleague, Mr. Sanjay Dua, will explain the process of interpretation and evaluation with examples.
Yes, good evening all. Let us understand the process of interpretation and evaluation with the help of examples. As we all know that a pen drive is a small portable computer storage device. Here a girl named Smita has a pen drive that stores music and photos. The pen drive has a capacity of 1 GB, which is approximately 1000 MB. The graph shows the current disk status. Please note down the free space, which is 152 MB. The free space is 152 MB, as shown in the graph. Next, please. Smita wants to transfer a photo album of 350 MB on her pen drive. But there is not enough free space on the pen drive, as shown earlier. While she does not want to delete any existing photos, she is happy to delete up to 2 music albums. Smita's pen drive has the music size albums stored onto it, as shown over here. There are 8 music albums with different capacities, starting from album 1 to album 8. Next, please. By deleting at most 2 music albums, is it possible for Smita to have enough space on her memory stick to add the photo album? Write yes or no and show calculation in support of your answer. For your convenience, I am taking you back on the previous slide. Previous slide, please. Please note it down. The free space is 152 MB. Is it possible for her to put a photograph of 350 MB by deleting the 2 music albums, any 2 music albums? Is it possible? Yes. I'm hearing few yes. I can see some yes on the chats. Only single yes. What about others? What's your opinion? Is it possible for her? I got one answer, no. Again, no. 350 MB is required. 152 MB is the free space. She is allowed to delete any 2 music albums. I repeat, any 2. Yes, I'm getting the answer, album 1 and album 8. That's correct. That's correct. Album 1 and album 8. It is possible. The first thing is it is possible. And album 1 and album 8 is one of the possibilities. Yes, I'm getting the right answers now. Yes. So one of the candidate has given the option of deleting album 1 and album 8, which is true, which is correct. Do we have more possibilities? Do we have more possibilities of getting it done? Barring deleting 1 and 8, do we have more possibilities? 7 and 8, true. 7 and 8 is also right. Correct. So, let us discuss the interpretation and evaluation in detail. What is the requirement of the child? 350 MB. Okay. What is the free space? 152 MB. So what is the difference between the two? What is the difference between 350 and 152? What's the difference between 350, which is required in the free space? What's the difference? 198.
198.
198 MB is the difference. So 198 MB is required. As we are free to delete any 2 music albums, so it is advisable to delete album 8 of 125 MB, which is of maximum capacity. 125 MB is of maximum capacity. If I reduce 198 further by 125, what I am left with? Reduce 198 by 125. That is album 8. What we are left with? If I reduce 198 by
73.
73, that's it, 73. Now the essence is, now the summary is, any album with the capacity greater than 73 MB when deleted along with album 8 will solve the purpose. So the combinations can be 1 and 8, 2 and 8, 3 and 8, 6 and 8, 7 and 8. So in all, we have 5 possible ways of doing it. I hope everybody is clear with the scenario. 5 possible ways. Now, my question is, can Smita achieve her objective without deleting album 8? Can she achieve her objective without deleting album 8? No, that's true.
No.
Because
No.
the sum of the others will not solve the purpose. Next slide, please. So what's the explanation? Here the student has to compare and calculate values to satisfy given criteria. The mathematical content area used is quantity because we are dealing with quantity, MBs. Under personal context, because it is pertaining to a student named Smita, and the process is interpret. We are interpreting the data. This question is very much relevant in present scenario, as in online teaching, we are required to add and delete the data from our devices on regular basis. Agreed? Next slide, please. Now let us take one more example using 5E's instructional model for effective classroom, namely engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. This instruction model is helpful not only in maths but for other subjects as well. Next, please. So before taking the example, let's read these 5E's a little bit in detail. The first one is to engage. The first step to ensure the readiness of the learner. For any meaningful learning, the learner must be ready. For creating interest in the learning situation should be created so that he or she is able to establish connections between previous knowledge and present learning experiences. This is the most important aspect of teaching and learning. Next, please. The second one is to explore. During this stage, students actively explore their situation or manipulate materials. Teachers must plan activities so that students are able to explore and reflect on various aspects of the concept. Sufficient time should be allocated for this phase of exploration. Next, please. The third one is to explain. Students are given the opportunity to explain after the exploration. They may be given sufficient time to express their ideas without fear. Teachers should be non-judgmental and should express empathy towards the learner. Next, please. The fourth one is to elaborate. This is a stage of practicing the skills of behavior learned. Students get opportunities to refine their skills, gain more information, or change their behavior during this stage. Next, please. And the last one is, of course, the evaluate. Teachers got the opportunity to assess the students' performance to understand strength and weakness. Students will also be able to assess their performance during this stage. Now let us understand the 5-A's instructional model with the help of an example. Next, please. Let us understand the model of this 5-A's example. Now I would like to convey here, that if teachers from non-math background are able to understand the example, then we can say that our objective has been achieved. So I will be aiming at the non-maths teachers rather. Okay. So how to engage a student? Have you ever wondered why most of the floor tiles are square in shape, and in most of the group housing societies or commercial projects, we see that the floor tiles are also square? There is a small activity I am sharing with you. I request all of you to observe the shape of the ceramic floor tiles in your room you are sitting in right now. Please observe the shape. and write it down on the chat box. Please share the shape of the ceramic floor tile. Square. One of the teachers has responded as square. Please observe the shape of the floor tiles in the room you're right now. Square, square. So the majority is square. Almost everybody is responding with square. Thank you. Next slide, please. Let's explore this. As per a survey, what the common ceramic tile size available in the market? Ceramic tiles available in the variety of size options, which are mostly square of size, 4x4, 6x6, 12x12, 16x6 inches, etc. All these are square tiles. This data has been collected from a standard tile manufacturing company. Next slide, please. Let us find out the reason. Let us take some wires of the same length, say 48 centimeter. We will take 7 wires of 48 centimeter to be precise. Bend all wires in the form of rectangles of different dimensions as shown in the next slide. Here are 7 rectangles you can see. The first one with dimensions 16 and 8. The other one with 15 and 9. The third one with 14 and 10 and so on. You can see 7 rectangles on your screen. So what is the common with all these rectangles? What is the common with all these rectangles?
Perimeter.
Yeah, they have the
Perimeter
same
is common.
perimeter. They are the same perimeter because they are made from the same 48 centimeter wire. So the perimeter is bound to be same. Perimeter, what's the perimeter? How do we define the perimeter in the layman language? Length obtained when we undo the boundaries of any plane figure and align it in a straight line is a perimeter. I repeat. Length obtained when we undo the boundaries of a plane figure and align it in a straight line is a perimeter. So all these 7 rectangles has a perimeter of 48 centimeter. So these are observations. Next slide, please. Let us try to evaluate the areas of these 7 rectangles one by one. The first rectangle was having dimension as 16 by 8. So what will be the area of the first rectangle? Any one of you? Area of the first rectangle,
128.
128. True.
128.
Next is 135.
The next is 135.
Yeah.
I will be happy with the non-math teachers.
140.
I will be happy with non-math teachers are responding. I will be happy with non-math teachers
143.
responding.
140.
The fourth one.
143.
The fourth one is 143.
Next one,
140.
140. 140 square.
Great. Next slide, please. In the same way, the area for the fifth one is 144 centimeter square. For the sixth one is 143.75. And for the seventh one, it is 141.75 centimeter square. So which rectangle has the maximum area? Out of these 7, which one has the maximum area? Of course, the fifth rectangle, which was 144.
12 by 12.
Rectangle, 144.
12 by 12, which is a square. The square, among the rectangles, the square has the maximum area with constant perimeter. Next slide, please. Perimeter of each rectangle is same, but the areas are different. The area increases with the reduction in the difference of length and breadth. And the area of the rectangle R5 is maximum because it is a square of side 12. We can conclude amongst all the rectangles of the same perimeter, square has the maximum area. Therefore, square tiles are more economical. Let us elaborate this point little further. Let us see how square tiles are more economical. We are taking a small example. Let us consider the floor of a small storeroom in a house of dimension 11 by 9. Area of the floor of the storeroom will be clearly 99 square units. Case 1, square floor tiles are used of dimension 1 by 1. Perimeter is clearly 4 units. 1 on all the sides, 4 into 1, that is 4. Area of one tile will be 1 square unit. Next slide, please. Number of square tiles required for flooring will be area of the storeroom divided by the area of one tile, which is clearly 99 tiles. If I use square tiles, I will require 99 tiles to floor the room. In second case, the dimension is 1.5 by 0.5. A rectangular tile has been taken. Perimeter is again same, 4 units. Area of the tile, length into breadth, comes out to be 0.75 square units. Now let us find out the number of rectangular tiles required for the flooring by the same formula. After calculation, it gives 132 tiles. In a small room, we need 33 extra tiles, and square tiles are more economical for flooring. I hope I've made myself clear. Thank you. Now Anjali ma'am will
Yes.
discuss few more examples. Thank you all. Anjali ma'am, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let us now take a look at the Cartesian coordinate system using
Next slide.
a photograph. This is to understand the concept of Cartesian plane in geometry. A Cartesian coordinate system is a coordinate system that specifies each point uniquely in a plane. So assuming that we have a photograph right here, all my colleagues from the Noida branch are able to actually identify and recognize the familiar faces, I believe. Okay, so if we consider one of the persons as the origin and draw two imaginary perpendicular lines from there, so that point being the origin, the two perpendicular lines, the horizontal one, it acts like an x-axis. The vertical one, that makes the y-axis. So now, assuming that the Cartesian coordinate plane of x and y is made right here by taking Madam Rani Negi as the origin and assuming that the distance between any two persons is 1 unit. So on the x-axis, as I move on the right-hand side of the photograph, I will have positive numbers, +1, +2, +3, and so on. If I move left-hand side of Rani ma'am, I will have -1, -2, -3, and so on. On the vertical axis, when I move, I have moving up means y is positive. The values of y are positive. Similarly, when we move down, the values of y become negative. So this type of an exercise will be able to actually find out the position of people as in the sense of coordinate points. So can you tell me who is there at the point 1, 0 on the x-axis? Noida branch teachers, you are able to identify the familiar faces. Can you make out who is there at the point 1, 0?
One
Yes,
gentleman
sir.
is there.
Yes, sir. Umesh, sir. Absolutely correct. Mr. Vardhan Sharma is there
Mr.
at the
Vardhan
position 1, 0. Who is there at the position -2, 0?
Sumana madam.
Yes, sir.
Sumana ma'am.
Who is there at the position -3, 0?
Mukul Srivastava madam.
Mukul ma'am.
Now, let us move in the y direction as well. Who is there at the position 2, 1?
Kamna Joshi ma'am.
Kamna. That's right. So who is there at the position 4, 1?
It's me, Asha.
Arre wah, very good, ma'am. So that is how we find out the position of any object, any point in the Cartesian plane. Who is there at the point -2, 1?
Neeta Marwa ma'am.
So this is a very simple and interesting exercise to make students well versed with the kind of the point identification that we want them to understand. Also, if the point of reference is changed, then all the points change themselves. They have a different coordinate now attached to the different origin. That is, in this particular case, if I change the origin to Principal Ma'am, that is Miss Asha Prabhakar, if the origin is now at Madam Asha Prabhakar. So what is there at the position -1, 0?
Vinaya Pujari ma'am. Vinaya Pujari madam.
Very true, sir. Very true. Others, are you able to comprehend that once we change the origin of reference, everything is relative? That is how we say that geometry is relative. So I think all of you have understood how we are actually trying to get to the different points. Every point is unique. So who is there at the position 1, 0 with the new origin system? Yes, ma'am. Komal ma'am, very correct.
VP madam.
So this is a very simple and interesting exercise to make the students understand the concept of plotting the correct point in the Cartesian planes. Let us now take up another example. The problem solving skills are so very important for mathematics. We need to understand or define the problem first of all. Thereafter, it is necessary to analyze the problem. Identifying different possible solutions is the next step. Choosing the best possible option as the solution would be the next step in the process. Implementing the solution and evaluating the outcome would be the next thing that we have to take up. Let us now take up another example. Let us construct an open box of maximum volume from a given rectangular sheet by cutting equal squares from all the 4 corners. So let us see, we are having a rectangular sheet which is either a cardboard or a chart paper. Let us name it ABCD and take the dimensions as 45 centimeters by 24 centimeters. We name the rectangle as ABCD. So, in order to make a rectangular open box out of it, what we have to do is we have to cut off equal squares from each of the 4 corners. You see right here, the length of this rectangle is 45, the breadth being 24, and 1 square each of size 5 centimeters or 5 units is being cut from all the 4 corners. When we fold the flaps, it gives rise to a box, which is an open one and cuboidal one. Can you verify that you are seeing that a cuboidal box will be made when we join the flaps and tape it using an adhesive? This is going to look like this. In the case 2, we will cut a square of side 3 centimeters from each of the 4 sides, and we will fold the flaps to turn this rectangle into another cuboidal box. The cuboidal box will now have a length of 45 minus 6. Now, why are we taking minus 6 and not 3? That is because we are cutting a square from each of the two corners. So the final length of the cuboidal box is 45 minus 6. The width of this box is 24 minus 6. The height, of course, is 3 centimeters as we have taken the size of the square which has been cut as 3 centimeters. Now let us see what happens to the dimensions of the box when x was taken as 3. The length of the box is 45 minus 6. 6 because we are trying to cut a small square from both the sides. That is why the resulting length of this cuboid is 39 centimeters. Breadth is 24 minus 6, that is 18 units. Height is 3 units. Volume of this cuboidal box will be length into breadth into height. So what is it going to be? Will somebody answer that?
Anjali ma'am, it's 2106.
First one is 2106.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Umesh sir, you are absolutely correct. Ma'am, you are absolutely correct. When x becomes 5, what happens to the dimensions of the box? The length is reduced by 10 units because once again we are deleting 5 units from each of the two sides. So it becomes having length as 35 units, breadth as 14 units and height is of course 5 units. What is the volume of the box in the second case when the
2450.
dimensions are 35?
2450.
2450.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely bang on. And in the third case, my fellows, what is going to be the volume when the length is 31, breadth is 10, and the height is 7 units?
2170.
2170.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. So this activity is actually to find out the maximum volume is when x is 5. And of course, when we take up more such examples, we can find out more about maximum and minimum volume. In our day-to-day lives, there are times when the packaging has to have a minimum volume and at times the packaging has to have a maximum volume. So once we are linking this to our daily life where packaging of boxes is prepared, so we know what size of the box has the maximum capacity, what size has the minimum capacity, and we can work better. So this activity is integrating geometry and mensuration with a real world context. Let us now move on further with another interesting case study, which is known as always, sometimes, never. We usually do this activity with language also. This particular thing illustrates a range of reasoning items going from simple to more complex, including questions which are statements that are...
Anjali,
Good evening, ma'am.
good evening. Allow me to intervene here.
Yes,
it's a
ma'am.
very fantastic session, Anjali. But the point here is that all efforts go in vain if you and Sanjay do not explain the kind of case studies you have taken. How will it enhance the learning outcomes of a child? What kind of domains the child will develop, which areas the child will develop understanding. So with each case study, you have to relate it and tell the teacher audience that while taking such examples in the classroom, the following domains of a child in terms of learning outcomes will be enhanced. So while you're projecting a case study, please tell the teacher audience and educate the teacher audience that how is it applicable in day-to-day life, how is the learning outcomes of a child are going to improve in which area. That is very important.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am.
Yeah, carry on.
Thank you, ma'am. So there are statements. Sometimes we have a statement in terms of language or science or maths, which are always true. Then there are statements that are sometimes true, and there are other statements which are never true. So I'm giving some examples. So you have to respond to it like, is the statement always true? Or is it sometimes true? Or is it never true? I say that a 14-year-old girl is taller than a 10-year-old girl. Is it always true, or sometimes true, or never true? Yes, Manisha ma'am, definitely. Sometimes. Very true. So a triangle has 3 sides.
Always.
Always true. A right triangle has 2 right angles.
Never.
Right. It is never true. A rhombus is a square.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. The sum of 2 odd numbers is an odd number.
Never.
Never.
A square is a circle.
Never.
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 A hexagon has 6 sides.
Always.
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 A hexagon has 6 equal sides.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Regular.
Sometimes.
Regular hexagon.
Right.
Sometimes.
Regular hexagon has.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A regular hexagon will have all the equal sides.
Yes.
If a coin is flipped 100 times, it will show heads 50 times.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes.
So all these activities and simple exercises will help students to investigate and critically analyze the statements. And they are, of course, going to understand the basic reading and mathematical literacy, both entwined into one. So let's take up another simple exercise involving patterns. Patterns are at the heart of mathematics. The ability to recognize and create patterns helps us to make predictions on the basis of our observations, which is a very, very important skill in maths. Let us now take this PISA sample question. There is a farmer who plants apple trees in a square pattern. In order to protect the trees from the wind, he plants evergreens all around the orchard. The diagram below is showing the pattern of apple trees and evergreens for any number n of the rows of apple trees. Please make sure that you understand that the dots are showing the apple trees while the crosses are showing the evergreens. Now, on the basis of the given pattern, can you identify what is the pattern for the apple trees?
N square.
Very true, ma'am. Are others agreeing to that? Square numbers. Very
Yes,
well
ma'am.
said, Pradeep sir. So what is the pattern for the evergreens? Can you identify that as well?
Square.
Square.
Please,
8 times.
please study a little bit further. Yes, there was an answer.
It's n plus 2 the whole square. Is it?
Please take a closer look, Indula ma'am.
Okay, sure. Once again, let me see. Yeah.
N square.
8 times n.
8 times.
8
Ma'am,
times
8 times.
8 times n. Yes. So the crosses which are actually representing the evergreens are 8 times n in each of the 4 situations. So once we are able to identify that, and of course the students, I think they are at times quicker than us to identify these patterns. So basic idea is to recognize the pattern for both the apple and evergreen trees. So once we are through with that, can you tell me what is the number of apple trees if n is 10?
100.
That's correct.
100 n square.
N square. So what will be the number of evergreen trees if n is 11?
88.
88. Very true.
88,
So,
88.
very correct. Very correct. Anita ma'am, Nishi ma'am, Mahavansh, everybody is giving the correct answer. Well done. So in this way, when we have patterns, they allow us to see that there is a relationship, and they develop the generalization, and we move from deductive to inductive skills. The deductive to inductive reasoning is surely enhanced when we have this type of examples given to students. Their observation skills are improved. Now, Mr. Dua is going to explain about strategies for learning from assessment.
Yes, good evening all once again. Let us discuss some strategies for learning from assessment. There can be a number of classroom strategies that are particularly effective in promoting formative assessment practices. Some of the assessment for learning strategies are, next one please, self-assessment by students. Now, I'm taking self-assessment by students on a priority because in the present situation of online teaching and learning, self-assessment by students is of great importance. Students' self-assessment encourages students to take responsibility for their own learning. It incorporates self-monitoring, self-assessment, and self-evaluation. Students may be asked to prepare questions themselves. The process of preparation of questions by students helps them understand their own levels of learning. In the present scenario of online teaching and learning, when everybody is struggling and exploring the possible modes of assessment, self-assessment by students is of great importance, as I've discussed earlier. Students should be encouraged for an honest self-monitoring, self-assessment, and self-evaluation for the sake of understanding their own level of learning. They should not indulge in wrong practice of copying during the online classes. They need to realize that there is no point in scoring high by copying and cheating in school internal exams without improving their level of learning. Next slide, please. Then we can have strategic use of questioning. Questioning is not only as a pedagogical tool, but also a deliberate way for the teachers to find out what students know, understand, and are able to do. In online classes, rapid oral questions will be of great help. Next, please. Again, effective feedback from teachers will help. Effective teachers' feedback focus on telling the students what they have achieved and where they need to improve. Importantly, the feedback provides specific suggestions about how the improvement might be achieved. Such a feedback can be given during the classroom teaching learning process as well. There is a scope for teachers to give various inputs for improvement after assessing the answer scripts. Example, mistakes done frequently, misconceptions, etc. Next, please. We can also have feedback from the peers. Peer feedback occurs when a student tells another student what they have achieved and where improvement is necessary. Again, the feedback provides specific suggestions to help improvement. Now, Anjali ma'am will talk about 21st century skills.
Hello there again. So what are these 21st century skills? There is an increased interest worldwide in what we are calling the 21st century skills. their possible inclusion in terms of educational systems is also referred to. The OECD has put out a publication that focuses on such skills and has sponsored a research project called The Future of Education and Skills, Education 2030. Some 25 countries are involved in this cross-national study of curriculum, including the incorporation of such skills. The project has at its central focus what is the curriculum might looking like in the future and focusing initially on mathematics. So some of the key 21st century skills are critical thinking. So when a plumber or electrician evaluates the material which is required for a particular job, an attorney reviews evidence and devises a strategy to win a case. Risk assessment is taken up, be it a financial thing or a potential hazard to a building. All of these involve critical thinking. Creativity. For example, the Apple computers came up with the idea of iPod. That's what we call creativity. Communication is the most important skill, as without it, there is no comprehension of the problem. Solution is impossible. So we say that the teachers are the real game changers. As we are preparing to benchmark our students on PISA 2021, there is a big task, but not a daunting one. With the country's commitment to PISA and students of various schools being a sample, we are expected to participate in a series of training programs, workshops, and reorient ourselves. We are also expected to prepare tools and tests for ongoing assessments, engage more with the students, and analyze their work periodically. An assessment like PISA focuses on young people's ability to use their knowledge and skills to meet the real-life challenges rather than merely on the extent to which they have mastered a specific school curriculum. It is time for all of us to adopt internationally accepted benchmarks and best practices for academic excellence. The onus is on us to set actionable targets in consonance with the paradigm shift in learning. The learning today advocates inquiry-based and student-directed learning. So we say that everyone can learn math. The idea that success in mathematics is only available to those born as mathematics people has been challenged in recent years by neuroscience, showing that mathematics pathways develop in the brain through learning and practice. So this is a myth that PISA also wishes to debunk. Given the right education systems, good teachers, and sufficient school hours, all students can learn. And we can give the example of South Korea, Japan, and Singapore, who were not as good as they are right now, some 20 years back, but by rigorously adopting good educational practices, training the teachers well, and increasing the school hours, they are amongst the top countries as far as effective literacy is concerned. So we say that learning takes place both within and outside school, and all children are naturally motivated to learn and are capable of learning. As teachers, we need to bridge this gap between our aspirations for future-ready learning and the day-to-day classroom practices. As a teacher, we have to help to make a difference and empower our students so that they become healthy, bright, and contributing citizens of the 21st century. So let's gear up and be ready to be the game changers. And in the words of Ivan Welton Fitzwater, the future of the world is in my classroom today. As it is well known that mathematics is learned only by doing mathematics. So thank you all. In the end, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my heartful gratitude to Principal Ma'am for giving us this wonderful chance to explore and research, learn and relearn new things. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would also like to thank VP ma'am for always guiding us and putting us on the correct path to complete a project with precision. I would fall short if I don't thank Mr. Sanjay Dua for his meticulous designing and execution that has made this workshop a dream fulfilled. The unstinting technical support provided by Ms. Vishali Mittal has made things easier. Above all, a big thank you to all my colleagues and my fellow teacher learners from all the departments. You all have been such a good audience. Wishing you all good health. I say thank you and goodbye. Till the time we meet again with another workshop.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Anjali,
everybody, once again.
Hold on, Anjali.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You need to thank the teachers of the sister schools and the principals attending for the sister schools.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely. Thank you so much, dear principals from the other sister schools and our co-teachers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It was a pleasure listening to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all, please.